Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law GL 30A 18 and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Hubbardston Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at www.hubbardstonmass.us. No in-person attendees of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately assess the proceedings in real time via Zoom. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on the town's website a comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So this was posted over a week ago, and everyone had been informed of this meeting who wanted to participate. So we will start the meeting. First of all, I would like to do a roll call. So all of the community preservation members, please state your name that you're here at this meeting, please.
Want me to start? Alice Livdahl from the Planning Board.
Susan Worth, Open Space, also in CPC.
Kayla Larson, representative from the Conservation Commission.
Stephanie Friend, Open Space Committee.
Sanda Barry, Parks Commission, Chair of the CPC. Thank you all. So I want to say good evening and welcome to all our applicants who are here to present their applications tonight. And I want to just explain a little bit about how the meeting's going to go. First of all of the members have a copy of your application and they've had it for a few days, so they're very familiar with it. So when you're talking about it, we can refer to it, as well as we're familiar with what you're requesting. We're going to have each organization present their application, and then after all the questions and answers from the committee are completed, you are more than welcome to stay and listen, or you're more than welcome to leave. You can choose what you'd like to do. After all the presentations are done, the committee will continue because we need to review our budget and then we need to vote on each application. As you know, not only do we need to know if we decide if the application is CPC eligible, but we also need to discuss if we have the funding to support your application. You will be notified in an email next week as soon as our decisions are made. And we will also inform you if we feel we need more documentation to support your application. So we'll move this process along very quickly for you. As you know, in the town of Hubbardston, and maybe it's this way in all towns, we will recommend any applications to the town. It will go on our town annual meeting warrant, and it has to be voted on at our meeting, which is held in early June by the town. So even though we move it forward, the town still votes on how they want to spend the CPC money. So I just want to make sure everyone realizes that tonight's meeting isn't the final answer. Okay, it does go before the town, and that won't be until June. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay. So Cynthia, why don't we start with you? Why don't you tell us about your application?
Great. Well, thank you for having me. The East Quabbin Land Trust has put forth an application to the CPC committee seeking $75,000 towards the conservation of a 275 acre parcel. Well, it's 15 parcels, but together 275 acres in one ownership on Lombard Road. We feel like this is an important conservation piece and are engaged in trying to conserve this property. It's adjacent to our existing Henry's Grove property, which is 94 acres on Lombard Road. And as you know from the map, there's a section that's on the east side of the road and another section that's on the west side of the road. We've been working with the Open Space Committee to, first of all, see if it would meet important qualifications and interest in the town of Hubbardston, and did get positive feedback about that. You know, some of the real important values that go along with conserving the property include the connectivity, the east-west connectivity between existing conservation lands, which will allow for wildlife habitat protection. There's wetlands and priority natural habitat on the property, the opportunity for trails and connecting trails east-west between the conservation areas. And so we felt like this was a really high priority to see the land conserved. I can pull up the map if that's helpful, but if you have it all in front of you, that's good too. You can ask me any questions you have about that component. We have negotiated with the landowner. They've come down on their purchase their sales price, and so as stated in the documents, the sales price is $650,000. The Department of Conservation and Recreation is interested in owning a portion of it, also then they're also willing to hold the conservation restriction on the remaining portion of it, which the East Quabbin Land Trust would end up owning. And so we have got about 2/3 of the funding already committed, working through the Department of Conservation and Recreation. We are working on raising additional funds through private foundations, and we'll be doing other solicitations and things to raise the remaining amount. But we are asking the town of Hubbardston to partner with us on seeing this important property conserved.
I had a question because I
Please.
don't quite understand how the whole conservation thing works. I know I understand some of it, but what did it mean in the project description when it said the conservation restriction will be sold? Will be sold to who? I thought that's what you did. I thought you held it.
So keep in mind that, when you own a piece of property, you have all the rights that go with it. And what a conservation restriction does is it removes some of those rights.
Mhm.
Kind of the basics are that, no mining, no dumping, no paving, no building. And so the way the way the property is formally conserved is actually transferring that conservation restriction, and that has economic value, right? So the way we value land, we got an appraisal completed, and it shows the value of the property. It shows the value the property currently when it's not restricted. It shows the value if the property was restricted with a conservation restriction. So that's like the after value, the after restricted value.
Mhm.
That difference is the conservation restriction value. So we have to buy the property at the full fair market price, right? So we're buying the whole thing at the $650,
Mhm.
and DCR has committed $175,000 towards the purchase of the conservation restriction. So we're asking the town of Hubbardston and other foundations to help fill in that gap, because the actual value of the conservation restriction is $350,000.
Mhm.
So the East Quabbin Land Trust is committing $50,000 for sure. Our board has already voted to do that. And so what we're trying to do is to fill that gap. And that's technically is a sale of a conservation restriction, because there's an economic value, and the Department of Conservation and Recreation would hold that.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you were I thought you were actually selling something. So.
Well, no,
I understand what you're saying, though.
it's basically a conservation restriction, extinguishes the right to develop because a third party holds it. But there is the way we value land, there is economic value. So that's why it's a sale.
Okay. I had another question unless someone else has a question. It was proposed that you were going to purchase and go through and purchase this in December. Did that happen?
Nope, the title work hasn't been completed. We've had an extension on our purchase and sales agreement to February 15th. The title work should be done at the end of next week. And right now there's no problems. It's just that there's 15 parcels and some of them have clearer descriptions than others. So it's just taking a long time for the title attorney to do that work.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just saw that was doing that. And I have one other curiosity question because I did a little research earlier. So I saw where the Fieldstone Farm LLC is actually a much larger project that started in 2015. Is this a small piece of that larger $2.8 million project?
That other project, that's already been completed to my understanding. And I think Mass Audubon and the town of Princeton were engaged and involved in that, and probably some other folks as well. I don't know directly. It's the same ownership. And so that was additional land. And so this is the last land that they have within that LLC, the Ruth Smith family property. These are the last pieces that I'm aware of.
That out there. Okay, so it's on part of that. I have another question. So if we're providing these funds to you and so who maintains this? I mean, what responsibility does Hubbardston have once if we agree to give this money, if the town votes for this? I mean, it sounds like we're not actually gonna own this property, so we're not gonna have to maintain it, because we do have property in town that we do maintain that has been bought with CPC funds. So this property will be different, DCR or the Quabbin Land Trust is gonna maintain it?
Right. So the way this is set up and the way we have been talking about it with the Open Space Committee is that the East Quabbin Land Trust will own the property. The Department of Conservation and Recreation will hold the conservation restriction. So the town of Hubbardston won't have any legal obligation to the property, but as the owner, the East Quabbin Land Trust always has management plans that are completed. And one of the things that I know is a priority is there is an informal trail network, but that we'll be working on putting together, a more comprehensive kind of plan for that, and work very closely with the Open Space Committee, because that's the group that we have been that's been communicating with us as we've been going through this process and thinking about where the priorities are within Hubbardston.
Mhm.
So we are asking for support in doing this, but there's no long-term responsibility.
Okay.
Because the Department of Conservation will be taking that on in terms of the monitoring of the conservation restriction, and we'll be taking on the actual management responsibility.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Oh, just a quick, I don't really have a question, but just a comment. I think that's part of the beauty of this opportunity, because as the Open Space Committee, there would be no way that we could even attempt to try to put this all together. But I hope we'll be able to be a part of something bigger, not only in the connectivity, but in the idea of partnering and creating a larger parcel, because it's pretty exciting. I mean, that's a big chunk of land. Also, DCR eventually, the part that's DCR would be bringing some revenue back to the town. Would that be a plus that we should mention? I think I'm starting to dig into the pilot program and all that stuff, but it's quite involved. But yeah, so that would be a plus too. It's not a gigantic one because they're the smaller acreage, which is which. I have to keep.
DCR will be owning the 126 acres.
Right. Okay. So, but still, it would be something. So it's just, I think we should be aware of that.
Right. And I haven't spoken to the Open Space Committee about this, but two of their members are here. The East Quabbin Land Trust would be, if we wanted to have a more formalized relationship, we could do an MOU or something like that, a memorandum of understanding in terms of how the property is going to be managed, or how we work collaboratively on ensuring that the town's needs, the trails, and the wildlife habitat components are managed and maintained.
Well, and I'm intrigued with the proximity to not only Wachusett, but the Mid-State Trail and Audubon. There's just so many good connections that I think could be maximized. And all of our conservation, or at least the recreational conservation land, is on the west side of town. And that happens to be on the east chunk. So that's kind of nice for those folks that live over there. So, and we couldn't do it by ourselves. So I'm excited about the opportunity to be part of it. Any other questions, anybody? The CR thing is confusing, Sanda. I still don't understand it, and I've heard it 3 or 4 times. But it's a positive thing.
Oh, no, yeah, that's fine.
I have a question, I guess, on, are there any stipulations on using CPC money for purchasing land that won't be owned by Hubbardston?
I wasn't sure about that, but I don't think there is a problem with that, because where's my little cheat sheet? Because the sheet talks about preserving land. Protect property from harm or destruction, provides grants, loans, assistance, securing deposits, whatever, interest rates directly. Sorry, that's the wrong one. So it's really, I think it falls under preserving land. So I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Right, and I live in Templeton, which also is a CPA community, and the town has contributed in several cases towards conservation of land that it doesn't own or hold the conservation restriction. So that's not a requirement. The money does need to be used for that. So it's very appropriate for money to be used for a conservation restriction because that's the actual document that protects the land. If the East Quabbin Land Trust owned it, purchased it without a conservation restriction, then the land technically isn't conserved. So that conservation restriction is a key component, right? Being able to remove the development rights is a key component to seeing the land conserved.
And I do think, Kayla, that we have worked together with DCR on other properties. I think Mount Jeff was done that way. I think Malone Road project, we outright bought that, but the Mount Jeff project was a huge project. And I'm quite sure if I recall, that was done with DCR.
Which one? The Mount Jeff?
Mount Jeff, yeah.
With DCR, but that was in 202, so it was before we were in CPC, but Malone was definitely helped out.
Malone, okay.
That's
Oh, that must have
67
been
acres.
That must have been town approved money then.
Yeah.
See. Okay. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and my point is we have not done any land acquisition since 208, which is over a decade. I think it's about time. That's just me. So I'm hoping I can urge you folks along too. We'll see. Okay.
Well, again, as long as it meets the criteria, then it passes. So that's all we're looking for is to.
Well, and the money aspect. So,
And the money.
we'll search that out here in a bit.
Yep. Are there any other questions for Cynthia?
Just, can I ask you, just out of interest, is this all wooded? Are there any meadows in it or?
There are two kind of abandoned agricultural areas.
Yeah.
One, the one along the road is, 30 years abandoned, so it's fairly well filled in, but you can definitely tell on the height of the tree canopy. As you go further up towards the top of the property at the high point, there is some, in that larger field area, there is some white pines that are, 25, 30 years old, and a lot of goldenrod meadow area around that.
Are you going to maintain any of it as open and meadow?
Don't know yet. I mean, I'm not sure how that all fits in. One of the things that we tend to do is to have a forest stewardship plan, which is kind of a broad perspective on a given piece of property, kind of how that property fits into the larger landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be, because the rest of that area is wooded, it may be really important to try to bring those areas back.
Uh-huh.
I personally am a little skeptical about trying to do active farming there, but wildlife habitat diversity is important. And so there may be some really good reasons to go ahead and reopen that spot. That actually, Susan and Steph, that's the spot at the top of the hill where you have the potential for the best view as well, looking west.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have the view, which is one of the advantages we have with the town owned land on Malone Road has a beautiful path that goes up and you can oversee Mount Wachusett. We walk it all the time. Also, what are the rare species? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I just know from the data layers, the GIS data layers. I'm not sure exactly which ones they are.
Okay.
Kayla, do you guys have access to that through the Conservation Commission? Do you know the specific species? I mean, they're kind of wetland oriented.
Yeah, is it all on Mass Oliver?
Yeah, I think anybody can access that.
But it doesn't tell us what species, but it just gives us the big bubble.
Okay, we're just curious.
I haven't looked. Yeah.
We know, so because we own the Henry's Grove, which does abut with the east branch of the Ware River.
Yep.
So we know that is, it's not box turtle, it's, what's the turtle down there? It's not the wood turtle, but it's a different turtle. Maybe it is the box turtle. So it's because, of course, the turtles, migrate and use the upland areas. So there's a big buffer around that. So I'm not sure if that's what actually connects with the, because it includes, that priority habitat includes the whole 126 acres that DCR is going to own, and a good portion of the 149 acres that will have a conservation restriction on the east side of Lombard Road.
Thanks.
Well, they have good signage up there too, so people will know like what trails are. Because I haven't been down that road in a while, but I do go down there a few times a year. And there's this vast area. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. And it's like, who even owns this property? And it kind of comes to like a dead end in the road. Then you have to go around the corner. And so will there be signage up there so the public knows they can use it and walk it and all of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So we just, our Henry's Grove property came to us in 2016 and it was owned by the Howe family, and they own the Howe lumber. And so he had that as a wood lot. And so one of the things that we did need to do and just finished was we just had a timber sale on our 94 acres. And so now we have a conceptual trail plan with the main skid road and then some other single track trails that we're going to incorporate into a whole plan on that 94 acres. And then so we're talking basically about the 149 acres just across the road from that. Mm-hmm. And building that all together. So I in fact need to go talk to the planning board to get a special permit to change, because that's a scenic road. So I want to add a small little parking area with the access road, and that's where we'll have our kiosk and signage and things like that. So yes, all of that is all part of the the plan.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to come to any of our other properties. We've got properties in Hardwick, of course, but New Braintree and North Brookfield is kind of close by. And that's the kind of stuff that we want to do. You have got to have a good parking space. You got to have a good trail map network. You can look on our website and see all that kind of information.
Good.
So just curious about the timeline. So the property will be purchased and the conservation restriction will be written before the June town meeting?
Yeah, so we have to, in order to meet the landowner's goals, we need, right now our purchase and sale is February 15th. So we do have to take the risk. We understand that there's the risk and the time factor in there. And, part of what we want to do in the interim is also have walks and mailers and talks, whatever makes the most sense to get people out there to understand what it is that we're asking and why it's so important to support it at town meeting. So we do know that there is the risk in doing that, but part of conservation is taking the leap, knowing that you're protecting something that's really valuable and being able to explain that and express it in a way that people can support and see. So in addition to, as I mentioned before, working with the town through the CPC funds, I've already submitted a number of grant applications, and there are more foundations that have deadlines that are going to be opening up in the springtime. So we'll be working on all of those things together.
Okay. So it would probably be very important that you keep us informed of how things are moving along.
Okay.
Well, because if you haven't purchased it, or if for whatever reason, God forbid, it falls apart, come June, then we would probably want to know that.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Well, the only thing that we're really waiting for is the title report, and it's been in the family for long enough that it's not going to have a problem, but it just has to go through that technical review.
Sure.
So my expectation is that we will own the property by mid-February and be working through the other details, including negotiating with DCR and the Open Space Committee on the terms and conditions of the conservation restriction.
Okay. Well, good luck. Hopefully that all goes through.
Thank you. Should I wait and listen to the whole conversation? Because when you get to the money part of it, or what would your recommendation be?
Well, it's going to be up to you. I mean, we're going to talk about our own funding regardless. We know how much you're asking for. We're going to look at how much money we have, decide if, how we would fund it. And, first of all, we vote to make sure it meets the criteria that everyone feels it does. And then afterwards, we're going to look at our budget, because we do have some big projects already out there that are being funded right now. So we're gonna have to look at, if we fund it, how are we gonna do that? So, so that's something we have to decide. So you don't have to stay around unless you want to. So, but we would definitely email you our decision, and you know, you have that email within a week. And other than that, it's up to you.
Okay. Susan or Steph, you guys have my cell phone, right? I mean, if it comes to where you think I should hop back on, do you want to send me a text message? And I'm happy to do that.
Okay, if that's what you would like to do.
Sure. I
I'll
mean, if
just check
there's,
yeah, I'm pretty sure my phone's right over there. So, you mean you'd like to hear the whole conversation, or sort
I
of?
guess if there's questions or issues, you know, when you get to the money part, if you think that I should,
So you kind of want to be on call, is that?
If- I'm offering that up, that if
Oh.
that's helpful.
All right, okay. I'll just check my phone, but I'm pretty sure I have it.
But you know what, we're gonna just be focusing on 75,000. We're gonna say they're looking for 75,000. Do we have that money? Do we want to pay it up front? Do we want to break it into a 2-year loan? That's all we're gonna be discussing. So the money's not gonna change. It's just
Okay.
how are we gonna dole it out? That's
How
all.
are you going to proceed? Okay, well then
It's more I think it's there. It's just a question of how it's structured.
okay,
I think that's what you're saying, right, Sanda?
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay, very good.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you very
meeting
much.
you.
I appreciate it.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Cynthia.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Night.
Oh, Carolyn moved. I'm like, where'd she go? I knew it this.
Magic.
All right, well, Carolyn, why don't you tell us about your application?
Sure. So we responded to an RFP from the town of Hubbardston for a lot at, it was lot 2 Ragged Hill Road, which is 217. And we were awarded that lot this summer. We've been working on a purchase and sale with legal counsel. So I'm hoping that will be signed really soon. And then we would be the owner of the land. We do have to file with the Department of Housing and Community Development for this to be a local action unit. So we will do that and get the regulatory agreement before the land is committed. So we'll work on that. Our plan on this lot is to do a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1.5 to 2 bath home. We just built 2 homes in this style in Ashburnham on Lakeshore Drive. It's a ranch style home. It's built so it can be fully accessible if the family selected needs the full accessibility. The ones that we built in Ashburnham are solar powered. So if the land allows us, we will do that. We did have the solar panels donated to us at Ashburnham, so we would need that again too to make it economical. If we do that, then we use mini splits for heating there. The family selection process usually starts when we're permitted for the home. So if we are able to move forward, we get a site plan, we would get the permit for the house, and then we open the family selection process. And the families, it's an open application process unless the town selects for us to have local preference, and that's up to the town. And if so, we would honor that, obviously. We have an application that's open for 60 days, and the homeowners have to earn 60% or less of area median income, have a need for a house, so be living somewhere that doesn't meet their needs, and that could be for safety, security, size, accessibility, or affordability, and then a willingness to partner, because the families will help to build the house. A single parent family puts in 200 hours, and a 2-parent family puts in 350 hours helping to build the house. It usually takes us about a year to build the house from permit to closing. We will build with volunteers. So we have a full-time construction manager, but we use volunteers to build. And then we are hoping again to partner with Monty Tech for the house. So we partnered with them for Ashburnham. We're working with them in Athol right now. And then we would look to partner with them as well. So we're on their schedule for this house for them to work with us. And it's worked great. It's been a great partnership. When we start building, we do form a local project committee. So we do put a call out for townspeople to help us to be family advocates for the family. They'll serve on the family selection committee, to help us make decisions about the house and the building, help us get volunteers, and also help us do some fundraising. So we do expect this house to cost about $170,000 to build, and that's cost of materials and licensed trades. If we partner with Monty Tech, like we plan, they will do the HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. So they'll help us with those, which is a great savings for us. We're requesting $20,000 of CPA funds for this, and the remaining 150 will be applying for grants and just doing general fundraisers. So we run about 4 fundraisers as an affiliate every year. We'll continue to do those, and some of those will go towards this home. We'd apply for Federal Home Loan Bank, Affordable Housing Program funds. That's generally around $30,000. We have some smaller grants. Nova usually does $3,000. Fieldstone Foundation does $3,000. So we'll apply for every grant we possibly can, and then we'll do the rest through fundraising. And we've partnered with Workers Credit Union, and they offer us a 0% construction loan, which is absolutely fabulous. Our policy in the past has been we don't start building until we've raised 50% of the funds. So since we have the construction loan, we just raise the funds for the site work and getting that done. And then we can rely on the construction loan while we continue to raise funds. So they've been a fabulous partner for us in that.
The family that gets the house, they do have a mortgage on it too, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. So they will hold a mortgage. It's going to be a no interest mortgage. We don't charge interest, and it's structured for their income. So we make sure that the payments, including principal, insurance, and taxes, are less than 30% of their gross income. So it's been proven that a family can be successful at that rate. And since there's no interest, it's obviously a fixed mortgage. So our hope is that families will continue to earn more money and be able to save for college and healthcare and anything else they would need while building equity in their home.
And then also the house is restricted on resale.
Exactly. So it will, because we're applying through DHCD, it will have a deed restriction from DHCD in perpetuity. So if the family ever decides to sell, it has to be sold to another family earning 60% or less of area median income. And that's our goal with Habitat. Our goal is to build the affordable housing stock in the state. So we do critical home repairs to preserve what we have. And then my affiliate, which serves from Acton out to Athol, is trying to add at least 2 houses per year to the affordable housing stock in our region.
And this is your 37th house or something. You've got a track.
This we've built 37, so Athol will be 38. This would be 39.
Okay, so
Even better.
I think everybody knows this because we're all kind of friends, but from the previous year. But the planning board took over the Affordable Housing Committee, which had been inactive for a long time. And I know Susan said, well, it's been 10 years since we put any money, into land. The last thing, we haven't built anything in town. The only thing is right now is senior housing. It's Hubbardston House for the seniors. So we're woefully behind. This would be the first Habitat house, but really the first any kind of a really affordable house, except for there's some group homes that qualify. Other money has been appropriated from the from the Affordable Housing Committee to get a housing production plan done, which sort of opens the door for other funding and satisfies the requirement the states require you to have one. That goal is to have 10% affordable housing. And we have like 3% or less. And then there was another grant. I mean, when we talk about money, there's another pot of money that was appropriated in 2016, which we are trying to use to acquire some more land, because this lot on Ragged Hill Road, it was the only lot in town that was, really, well, there were 4 of them on the road. When I asked for all 4, from the
That was
select board.
smart.
They went and told the other three. So we need to come up with more land. So we are working on that too, which is, I don't want to tie up Carolyn's time on that, but we do have some a real prospect I can explain for redeveloping the old town gravel pit as a senior residence. We're trying to work on, and that's a lot of money to get that project ready. So we're trying to devote most of that. So about 30 of that 50 will go into that, and the 20 has already gone into tax title foreclosures, and we hope to acquire some lots that way. So we're hoping to have this 20,000 taken out of funds that have accumulated since 2016. I think the money's there, and we do think that actually the town people would be sympathetic. And we also think it's a really hard time to raise money right now. So in addition to the land, you know, if we can give them a little bit to start it off, you know, 20,000 isn't a lot out of 171, but if they have the land and, you know, some money to get really started on it in this bad economy, we figure it'll be, instead of 2 years from now, maybe next year, that they'll actually have the house, you know. So that's kind of our thinking. I hope everybody supports it. The planning board's all in on supporting this.
Oh, quick question, and you may not have the exact answer, but if that larger senior housing does go through, about what percentage would that bring us to? Maybe 5 or 7%? I mean, how many units? Do you have any idea? I know that's a tough question.
I think, oh, I can't pull it off the top of my head, but we're supposed to have, I think there's about 1,000 housing units in town, right? So we're supposed to have about 100 of them be affordable. Affordable is, so you're looking at that range. And right now we have 20 something. I mean, so we got a ways to go. But the senior, it isn't all just driven by the state mandate for the affordable housing. It's also, we did a vulnerability study that identified senior housing as the most urgent need. Because as Carolyn pointed out in her introduction, if you read it, the senior population between now and 2030 is going to grow by 1,000 people, right? So, and then we've lost 600 kids in our schools. So we're trying to work for affordable housing on both ends of that spectrum because they're two different problems. But this was something that doesn't take rehabilitating an old gravel pit, you know, which is years, and building a big thing. It's something we could do this year to finally put a stake in the ground and get at least one unit built and bring one family to town. So that was kind of our rationale anyway. I don't know what will happen. I mean, it's possible that the gravel pit studies will show that the land is too contaminated to put the wells and the septic and, you know, people in there. We don't know. We don't know. If it is, then any thing that's left out of that money, we can also, you know, come back and reappropriate it to habitat or, and also with the lands and tax foreclosure, I thought it was never going to work because these are some pretty good pieces of land, 3 of them. And I figured once you really became serious about collecting the money, the owners would come back and redeem them, you know? And Ryan said he can't give that money back to us as housing money, but he could recommend it, that we, you know, support efforts. But right now, none of those people have redeemed their property. So there may be other things we can do, and, you know, Habitat may not be the last house they build in town, hopefully, but anyway, we've got irons in the fire, as they say.
Oh,
but this one's the only one that really, really looks promising. And we're very disappointed that it's taken so long to get the purchase and sale done. Somebody dropped the ball in town council or somewhere. Anyway, it's now being on fast tracked, I understand, right? So the goal is that they would break ground this summer.
Well,
There.
I think it's a wonderful project. You know, like I said, we'll vote afterwards, you know, Carolyn, but I've been on committees for 20 years now. I know a lot of you have, and housing has just looped and looped and nothing has come forward, nothing. And we need to do something. We need to protect our town, you know, from being overdeveloped by what, if you don't have a 40B plan, someone can come in and develop, and we don't want that to happen. But at the same time, we need to have affordable housing You know, when you say 600 kids have left the school, that makes me very sad. That tells me young families are not moving to our town.
Right.
And whether it's affordability or whether the town doesn't offer enough for what young families are looking for, I just think that's sad. But I did know it was happening. So I think affordable housing should be one of the top priorities in our town. That's just my opinion, but.
Just a quick comment too, Carolyn, the fact that you said it has possibilities for accessibility. So if down the road, someone would need that, it's easier to make it happen, and it makes it more diverse people could be using it later on.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, that's thinking ahead, in the solar, that's fantastic, you know, so.
Yeah, and it could be, so it will be an open application process, so it could end up being a multi-generation that moves in that also needs the accessibility. It could be someone looking to age in place, and wherever they are doesn't meet their needs. I have to say most of the homes are owned by younger families,
Really.
but it is an open application process, and they have to just meet the financial criteria, and then the next highest criteria is need. So whoever scores highest on need would be the one to move forward.
Now, I know this is related and unrelated, and I'm just going to bring it up, but it was my understanding that the Madison Greens that was built in town, the 55 and older, there was actually 2 units, I think, that were specifically for affordable housing. And then years later, they paid back the town or something because they didn't want to have that restriction on it anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Does that make sense? I mean, am I understanding that's what happened?
The story I got was that, I don't know, the story I got was they didn't do it right. And anyway, they just offered to pay the town, I don't know, 50,000 or something like that to get out of it.
To get out of it, yeah. But that wouldn't be happening with this project, right?
This would not be happening with this.
It
project.
couldn't, no, because when we will go into it with a signed agreement with the town that's filed with DHCD. Because what we want is for it to be affordable in perpetuity.
Yes.
Also,
That's why we're building it.
this land has been, the town took tax title to it in 1968.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
We've been sitting.
I said, guys, we could do something with this, you know.
Wow.
I was
It's a
8
beautiful lot. It'll be a lucky family. We need
We're
to.
witnessing a miracle then.
Yes, seriously.
Oh, my.
And I don't remember if I said it in the application or not, but we have done, so when we built in air, we built a duplex in air, and that was 50% funded with CPA funds. And then we just 2 years ago did a rehab in Acton, and it was funded, actually it was a historic building that we rehabbed, and so half of the funding for CPA was from historic and half was affordable housing. That was a really, really cool project. It was originally built as factory worker housing around 1900, and then it become market rate, and then we get to return it to affordable housing. So it's a super cool project.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Very good. All right, any other questions before we move on? No?
If for some reason, Alice, I'm glad that you brought up the plans for that other money that was already allocated for affordable housing. If for some reason this didn't pass, could that other money that's already for affordable be used for this project?
Yes, it could be. It could be, and actually, we have quite a bit of money accumulated as well. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, I don't know. We really need senior housing. So I would, and that is the same thing. It's even worse to attract a senior living complex like that. Those developers are very skilled at working it's a really limited group, and they expect the land for free, and they don't expect it to be a gravel pit, right? So it's a reach to make it happen. But I think it's possible. It's not a bad location because it's not too far down Pitcherville Road. So there's no place in the middle of town, which is really what seniors want. But there is a bus route that's pretty close, and there's the super Walmart, and there are possibilities there. But anyway, if it doesn't come through, we'll put it back on the table and see what we can do.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, Carolyn, thank you very much for presenting your application. And again, you're welcome to stay, or you can, leave the meeting, and we will send you an email and let you know our decision. And I'm sure Alice will, reach out to you as
I'll get
well.
hold of you.
But, and nice meeting you, and thank you very much for presenting this application.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to submit it and considering it. And we really, really look forward to building.
Great.
All right,
you so much.
thank you.
Bye.
Great.
Night. Oh, God.
Somebody was happy.
Ignore them. Kai, stop.
Susan, you can mute your microphone too. You can still hear us, and then unmute it when you want to speak. It's up to you.
That's true if I can find it. Once I'm set up, I don't touch anything.
No, I hear you. So moving forward, I'll be very honest, I'm a little disappointed no one from the trustees is here to talk about their applications, but I'm going to start with the one requested for $10,000, the main floor rehabilitation. I think we all have reviewed that.
Yep.
I don't really see, it's pretty straightforward. It definitely needs some work.
The one thing I wondered just about the CPC guidelines was, I know it's a historic building, but do the repairs have to be historic?
I had the same thought.
Yeah, they talked about a new bookcase and new lighting.
New
not the-
windows.
Yeah,
Everything. They were almost changing the floor plan slightly which is great, but
Because
does
it's
it
cramped or
meet the
something.
criteria?
Yeah.
right.
The picture of the light looks like it might be right, but.
I mean, yeah, the fluorescent ones they have in there now don't.
That's definitely not, period, true.
Very colonial.
But that's a good point.
Well, if you read the little blurb on the cheat sheet, it does say capital improvements to make assets functional for intended uses. So if things are not functional anymore, like you have a window that's not holding out the cold and holding in the heat, that's a non-functional window is what I would say. Or if it's leaking water, so I would say those things would probably qualify.
I guess the question on that would be, do you have to replace them with something that was what they had in before?
Right, like the roof had to be slate, right? Couldn't be a new metal roof or something.
It didn't have to be slate.
Oh, it didn't. Okay.
No,
But it
they
had to
chose
be
to.
in
had to-
line with the style, right?
Correct, but I think we had 3 options with that, right? Like they presented 3 different types of roofing
Okay.
Oh, you're talking
And
about
they
the
would-
library still? Yeah.
for the library. Yeah, I was talking about the library.
Yeah.
So I don't think it has to be. I think maybe it has to look that way, but it doesn't have to like be, you know what I'm saying? Like it can be a modern window that looks historical. So it stays with the look of the structure.
Because when we were talking about the cemetery stuff and
Oh, right.
replacing fencing, that's what came to my mind when I was reading this. It was like, you couldn't just put up a vinyl fence because that's even though it's a nicer fence, it's newer, it's more functional, it's not historical.
Well, that's right, but the building is historical. And the fencing was not a historic piece of the cemetery. The cemetery itself was historical. The fence
Okay.
was not historical.
Okay, yep,
Do you remember that?
yep.
Yeah, I
The
do.
fence had been put in like the 1980s and they were looking to replace the fence. It wasn't a historical fence.
Okay, all right, I got it, yep.
It still could be a gray area, but. Does anybody know why nobody is here? I mean, I'm just, I know Tom Robinson, right, Robinson, right, was like the driving force behind the roof, and they did a fantastic job. I
They
mean,
did.
that is an amazing thing. So I'm sort of surprised that somebody's not here kind of.
Well, and I'll be honest, we can always say we're going to table them and we're going to ask them to come to our next meeting and present the application. And because I have a lot of questions about their second application.
Foundation stuff?
Yeah, because we already gave them $8,000 for foundation work that's never been used. And they actually got a capital improvement for $10,000 in 2019 for foundation work. So I'm saying, is this all the same foundation work? I have a lot of questions about that application. That's all. Because it looks like they've already requested money for foundation work and it hasn't even been used.
Correct.
And they're asking, yeah, for an extension on it, right?
It was mentioned somewhere. I remember seeing something about an extension, but well, when we look at the financials, some of the data there will help us because I believe the year that it was, for example, library long range plan was 216, library foundation fund 219 for the 8,000. But if they haven't used that yet, I mean, you know, with an old building, you can always use more. So and then the requests are not gigantic, but it is kind of like, well, what, does anybody else kind of wonder about that?
No, I do. And actually, so one of the fiscal year 2021 capital spending was to access and repair the Hubbardston Public Library Foundation for $10,000. So it looks like they have pots of money already. Is this additional money? Is this all the same project? So I think we should ask them to come and explain their application.
As long as they have to come for one, why don't we have them come for both?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yes, and just, you know, because I think we have a lot of questions and no one's here to represent it. So I think we should table these two applications. Request that they come to our next meeting in February and let them explain it.
That was my next question, to try to get at it in the near future. So a February meeting would be appropriate then, right?
Correct.
You still have time to get it on the warrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the warrant will close in the end of April. So we would have February, March, and mid-April to have them, you know, dot their I's and cross their T's and explain it. And again, they're not here to represent it. So how serious are they about it? I mean, that's how I would look at it. But
does anybody know the lady Amato? Is she maybe technophobic? If there's nobody to help you, I am.
No. I know her. She's very so. No.
The trash is going up the driveway. Sorry.
That's fine. And I included her for this.
You know, speaking for this, like this 50,000, which I was appropriate in 16 before I was around.
Yeah.
I do think it's really a good idea to maintain the accountability, what's happening to these funds. Nothing should sit around and be unspent. So that's a perfectly reasonable request.
Well, absolutely. And in the CPA bylaws years ago, we said people had 2 years to complete their projects. And if they ran into a stumbling block, that's fine. They would have to come and request and tell us why they need an extension. And it does happen, but to not even come to support the application, we can't even ask them questions.
How would you like to throw a real worm into everything? I read the Barry Gazette. And there was an article in there about the Library Foundation just last week. And it caught my eye. And I said, okay, you know, Johnson Structural Engineering. Town Administrator McLean said the report found there was not as much damage as expected, but work still needed to be done. And here's the funny part, you're gonna love this. The library received $18,000 from the Community Preservation Act towards the repairs. So I kind of chuckled. I thought, are they being presumptuous? Not exactly, because they're probably thinking they got the 10 from what you were saying and the 8 from the previous. So there's, you know how when you read a story in the paper and you know the backstory, you're saying,
yeah,
you know, it kind of makes sense, but not exactly. So maybe need some
So maybe someone needs to motion a vote that we table these two applications. If people are comfortable doing this and reaching out to them and asking them to come to our next meeting to represent their application and explain it because we had questions. And I don't think that's unreasonable to ask.
I'll make that motion. Do I need to make it again? Or did you get it down? Okay, I'll make a motion that we ask representatives of the library trustees to come to our next meeting and give us more detail about their projects and the status of the money that was appropriated previously for foundation work.
Perfect. I'll second that.
All in favor?
You got to go by name. Livdahl, aye.
Sheila Larson, aye.
Susan, aye.
Sanda Barry.
Stephanie, aye.
Stephanie. in
And
there?
do we,
Stephanie, aye.
do we need to check with anybody on the specifics of what can be included for internal repairs, or do we feel confident in that?
I feel confident, but if people are uncomfortable, I can throw an email out to the CPC guru, Stuart and Chase. I can ask them. But I'm just thinking of other repairs that have been done in town. You know, we've done a number of roofs, the Williamsville Chapel like that, and nothing had to have been to the historical factor of the roof or having to be slate. So I'm comfortable with it, but if others aren't, we can ask.
Well, while they're there, but we need to know that. That's not something they're gonna know.
No, yeah, I meant, should we ask anybody at CPA? Yeah,
Yeah, with CPC or not.
or read through the, documents more or something.
I mean, I'm comfortable with it, but if others aren't, then we can ask.
Would you be the one to contact them then about?
It's just an email. Yeah, you just
Okay.
send CPC an email. But it does say rehab and restore capital improvements to make assets functionable for intended use,
Okay.
including
them
improvements
functionable.
to comply with federal, state, or local building codes or federal standards for rehabilitation of historic properties. Which they would have to do anyways because it's a historic building. In other words, I don't think they can put a crank out window in there. You know, I think it's gotta be. So are people comfortable with that or not? Okay,
Comfortable with it. I think it's allowed. Be good if the bookcases and all kind of matched. You know, maybe we can.
well, it could be that the bookcases are falling apart and need to be rebuilt.
Right. It'd be nice to know what they mean by redoing it with build bookcases. Are they rebuilding them or what the?
Yeah,
That isn't clear. Even though they had some very nice pictures, they didn't have any concept plans for the office. Did they? Maybe I didn't print them out.
it just said it was cramped. So,
Okay.
Yeah, primary source info would be very helpful there, don't you think? Yeah, so we're good with that?
Yep. And I can, I'll send them the email. Does that sound good?
Maybe it'd be nice to put a sort of a codicil in that we're pretty, in other words, that we're not just throwing it out. Do you know what I'm saying? That
Oh, yeah,
it sounded
absolutely.
pretty good, but we'd like just, yeah, so it doesn't come across as being negative, really.
This
Just
is gonna come across as being negative. It's just gonna be
Well,
straightforward.
not a yes right away, so it's negative.
We have questions. No one's here to answer them.
Okay, I mean, I'm okay with it, but I'm just saying.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think we know most of the people. At least I know 3 or 4 of the trustees on the committee.
And nobody showed up though, that's the thing, so, that's weird.
All right. So why don't we look at the budget? And Susan, you did a great job.
All I did was say, Kelly, would you please send me this? So yes, thanks to Kelly,
Yeah, she did a great job.
except some of it is a little bit confusing sometimes. But I think we'll be able to sort it out enough to figure out what we need to do for tonight. it just seems like one of the procedural things that she has mentioned several times, that we need to vote to put the funds back.
Yeah,
The 35.4 goes back to historic, which would be lovely because then there'd be a good, healthy balance in there to take the 20. And the 38 goes back into the undesignated, which will make that healthier. So you
Yep.
feel like, yeah.
I just had a couple questions about that though. Well, first of all, in order to do that, we just don't vote. We have to actually vote, put it on the warrant, and the town has to vote to move it. Okay?
Okay. So that has to technically wait until June to
Correct.
happen. But we're the ones, and in fact, mea culpa, in our minutes, the 400 was already voted on. Danielle
I saw that.
said to do it, and Stephanie seconded it, and I totally forgot about it. Until I read the minutes and I said, oh, I should have done that. The
Yes,
400
oh, go ahead. And I did go back and looked at last year's 2020 town meeting, and I compared it to 2019. And you're right, in 2019, we moved these little miscellaneous amounts of money that were left over from projects. We had them all moved back into their respective pots. But last year that didn't happen. But that's fine. Last year was a crazy COVID. We're still in a crazy COVID year. But it just didn't happen. That's fine. We just need to make note to do that for this coming town meeting.
So is that a formal vote of the committee now, and that moves it forward onto warrant?
Well, we can vote on it now, or we can vote on it when we're making up the warrant in April. So it doesn't matter. But I had a question.
Okay.
I don't know where the first church 35,000 is coming from, because they're talking about the Unitarian Church, and we had voted to give them the money, but then there was the whole problem that came because it was a church. And so the church borrowed the money. So then we went back and we voted to pay the church the money, the church people the money to pay off their loan. So I don't know if $35,000 was voted twice.
That's a very interesting question.
So that's what I just think we need to find out first.
Maybe I'll do some more research. It's not easy. It's because CPC is fluid, and yet it seems to be stuck at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
But Susan, do you understand what I'm talking about? How we
Yes.
originally had
Where
voted
is
35?
that money?
We couldn't
real
get the
money?
bond money for it. Remember that? We couldn't get the bond money for it because of the church.
Church state something, right?
Yes, and there was this, so they wouldn't give us the money. So then the church ladies, they took out their own like personal church fund loan, and then we agreed or voted to pay that loan for them because we had agreed to fund them the 35,000.
So it needs some research, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think 35,000 maybe got voted twice, and it came out to pay that loan, and maybe this 35. I don't know what happened to I don't know where this other 35 is coming from. So if you can do some research with Kelly just to see, and maybe it's just that money needs to just be voted to be put back in the coffers.
Right.
Because you're saying it would have been expended already, right? It was
Correct.
already given to them.
Correct. So,
But it seems to still be floating somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be a fun one. Yeah, no, I have the time to do it.
okay.
Yeah, okay, so that's one thing. What about the library roof? We know for sure that number is real, don't we?
I think so, because I think the library came into money for that roof project, and they didn't need all the money that we had put out.
Right, so if that goes back into undesignated, 182 is much happier than 144 or 145, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And
So-
how they know it goes back into the undesignated, I guess the numbers tell you, right?
Well, so what happens is they go back and they look at the warrant, and the warrant says where the money came from,
Yeah,
which
okay.
accounts it came from. So that money would go back into whatever account was voted that the money was coming out of.
Well, since there's no questions on that one, could we get that one back into undesignated? I know it doesn't happen until June, but formally.
Someone make a motion.
Okay, I move that we put the 38, 27, and 50 cents that was surplus from the library roof project back into the undesignated CPA bucket.
I'll second that.
Okay,
would make it 182, almost 183.
Yep.
So that seems a little more serious than 144.
so we need to vote on it.
Aye, Susan?
Kayla,
Stephanie, I.
Livdahl, aye.
Sanda, aye. 'Cause we can't-
Stephanie, I.
Okay. Well, that'd be great. So that'll move back to undesignated.
so these allocated funds were allocated at the beginning of some fiscal year. Like obviously we didn't vote on 38,027, right? The library spent some and this is what was just remaining.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question? Where is the playground that we voted last year in these numbers?
The 50 is there. The 150 is to be financed. So the 150 doesn't show up yet.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
That makes sense. You know, yeah, and the key to this is staying up with it. Because, yeah, once it's down the river, it's much harder to figure out.
Yeah, so that's exactly true. And I think that was coming out of undesignated funds and then they were gonna finance the other 150. So,
Yes, because we didn't have
so
enough
we-
in open space to do it. That was why, at the time, which we still
So it
don't.
came out of undesignated. Okay.
Right. Correct. The
Okay,
50.
so of this 182, there's still more playground money coming out of that in future years?
Correct.
No, in payments. It's gonna be bonded, right? Right, Sandra? That's the plan?
correct.
That's
So,
what-
oh, go ahead.
No.
So basically, Kayla, what happens is every year we bring in money from the state and
Right.
tax. And if you look at CP1, the next page.
Yeah, it's about
we
60.
brought in 66,000. What you have to realize is out of that 66, pretty much coming in, they're gonna be paying out, you know, a payment for the library roof, which is gonna be like $21,000 a year. There's going to be, well, that 66 actually gets broken up into the different categories, different buckets. So depending on what the vote is, how this money is coming out to make the payments on the bond will reduce those amounts. So the biggest thing is we don't want to, unless we're paying something up front, we don't want to make sure our yearly payments are more than what we're really taking in. Does that make sense?
Yes,
that's the
but how do
rub.
we see on this paperwork what our committed yearly, future yearly expenses are?
You don't. That's the weird thing. But
Okay.
yours truly is having a real blast digging into this. On the library roof, we had 5 payments. We've paid 1. We've encumbered the second. We have 3 more payments of approximately 20,000 plus interest. So if the playground thing starts, there would be a couple years of overlap, which would make it kind of tight, but not really. Because each year we bring in more too, 60 to 80 each year.
Right.
But
So
you
we
don't
have-
want to overextend like you wouldn't want to do with your own budget, right?
Right.
So you're saying for the next 3 years, there's 20 per year to the library roof?
The next 3, right?
And
That-
for the next 4 years, there's 50 per year for the playground?
No, that hasn't been decided. It can't go longer than 7 years, but it depends how you structure it. Of course, the longer you stretch it out, you're paying more in interest in a way. Depends.
We must have already voted on that last year though, right? As part of the warrant?
The library, no, we just said
No,
that.
the playground.
The playground, we took out 50 from undesignated and that's encumbered there on the list. And then the 150 in the warrant, it said not more than 7 years.
Okay, we didn't say how we were.
No, that's to be arranged. And who knows? Unfortunately, and I don't know the details, but we didn't get the park grant. So we were hoping some of that would be defrayed because it is a big chunk. Because, you're not going to want to hear this, guys. But I've been doing some research and the town has a policy that they don't want the debt to get to more than 2 to 5% annually, and right now we're at 3% of the total operating budget. So, you know, we'll have to look to Ryan to sort of help us through this.
Is that specific to CPC or is that for people, for committees' budgets?
Well, it's debt service. It's on page 24 of, I don't even know where I found this exactly, but the library roof is at the bottom.
Okay.
So it's page 24 of something on the fiscal. You have to write that down, Shem, but I printed it out because trying to find it again is sometimes very difficult. Talking about a new fire truck coming up too. So, you know, there's some big bucks stuff that's coming down the pipe, I think.
But I think one of the, but what I'm thinking is they're talking about town budget. CPA kind of has its own budget.
True.
You know
but
what I'm saying?
It's counted in the debt though. I think it's on that sheet.
I guess we'd have to have that explained a little better. All right.
Maybe
So
I
there's-
can talk to Ryan about it and he could join us sometime with just talking us through how that works.
Sure.
So these handwritten numbers on that ledger history total to 274,000. That everything that's not allocated to a project currently. So that's our total
Yeah, it's
that we still have in the bank, basically.
basically, yes, 274, 442.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
But does that include the payment out to the playground for the year?
No. Yes, I think.
That has
Okay,
been
so
paid
fiscal
yet.
year.
No, that's already encumbered, so that's in a
Yeah.
different list.
Right.
Payment number 2
Right.
is encumbered.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Okay.
so you were adding up the 28, 22, 40, and 182, right?
Right.
Correct.
Except we haven't, the historic is not 22 because we haven't moved the negative amount. See on the left column, historic was at negative 12,000 because at some point somebody pulled more out than what was in there. Are you looking at what I'm seeing there?
Yeah, but then
So-
what's the plus 35.4, which brings it up to 22?
If we
It's
could
the
do that,
roof.
that was the First Parish Church, which we have to look at. Where is that 35? The
Oh.
400, we know for sure, because that was already voted on by Danielle and Stephanie seconded it on the last meeting. Ugh, yeah, it's,
So these are all different. They all have different account numbers. So the money has already been moved from general CPC into these separate accounts. And what's left over is the handwritten.
what's left over.
What's left over to give away is
Yes, that's what's down
Yeah.
below. The
Yeah.
printed columns are all encumbered monies. That means they're set aside, they're allocated. Yeah.
all the way till June 2021.
Right, or longer, because some of this has been on the books for a while. For example, Curtis Recreation Field, you know, you couldn't do it because COVID came, but we know the money's there to finish that project, right, Sanda?
Yeah, that 21,000,
Yeah.
21,200. Yeah.
Okay,
Does the money come into CPA monthly, quarterly? When does
annually.
Yeah,
annually?
in October usually.
In October.
That's what those two forms are about, CP1 and CP2. The town sends in what their tax is applicable, that we have 1.5%, I believe.
Yeah.
Over the first 100,000. And then there's a formula and then they put theirs in plus interest. If you look at it, there's like $5,000 interest, which I was thinking, it can't be on just that little amount. So is
Right.
this kind of segregated and we get interest on the whole balance, which is basically 400,000? I don't know. See, I'm still wading in to ask stupid questions and you get some good answers once in a while. So
You need to ask the Ryan or Kelly because
yeah.
Okay.
so why
So, go
okay.
ahead.
So are people pretty comfortable with the amount of money we have right now? I mean, we understand that, all those columns added together. How much did you say it was? 270?
274,
Well, it should, let's,
if we get that.
yeah, if
Do
we
you not want to
need
count the
the
35?
historic, so maybe deduct 35 then, because we're not sure where that 35 is.
So maybe the 229,888 as she has here? No,
Well, 274 minus what?
35,
Right, okay, yeah. That we know for sure.
239.
What does
29.
that bring us to? I don't have my calculator here.
239.
Okay, all right, that's still, you know,
Yep.
well, did we? Oh, I'm blanking out here. The easy one. I'm just thinking out loud here. Go
And I
ahead.
have a question for you
Yeah.
too. Out of the 50, where this actually stands at the moment, what we spent is 15,000 for the tax title attorney.
Okay,
And then we've appropriated, which Ryan sent me this odd email that he wanted
I printed it out, yeah.
acknowledgement or something about, but
Mhm.
it's 4,000 and it was to do the phase 1 environmental study of the pit lot.
Yep,
15
On Ragged Hill, oh no, the pit.
yeah,
The
That's
gravel,
the
the old
bigger
gravel
project.
pit.
Okay.
And so that's 4,000. So that's 19,000 out of the 50 we've committed.
Okay.
But the phase 1, and I can write this out for you. You don't need to write it down. The phase 1 environmental study will be done before the month is out, or it takes about a month or thereabouts. And then the next phase, unless it's just it's really to look at where it's a paper search of all the history of the property.
okay,
And it picks out places where, for example, in the gravel pit, they had, the police department had a rifle range.
Mm.
So would put on where you would look for the lead, you know?
yeah,
And then they do some soil tests and some water tests and so forth. And that's about another 8,000 that would come out of that. And then the rest of the 50, the rest of what's left of the 50 would be committed is about 29,000 to the actual design of what a senior, facility, something you could go to bid with,
mhm,
do to restore the land. And actually it's more than that, but if we put in that much, Ryan's pretty confident that he can get some grant money to finish
Oh,
the
That
project.
would be great.
mhm.
Yeah.
So I can give you that update, and then if you want a request for an extension, because the 50 was extended in 2018,
Mhm.
it should be extended again. What's left of it.
That's, well, no, I think if you're actively using it and you just let us know that, that's fine.
Okay, I'll give you a written report just for the minutes to add.
Okay, so it was originally 216, was extended to 218, and now we need some more time, right?
Correct.
Right.
Okay, because, yeah, all right.
Well, you really have till June, and it looks like you're gonna be using some of this up before June.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can report in where it stands, and then, but that's why I didn't want to take the habitat request out of that money, because we do have 40, we have here 40,000 in the account that isn't committed.
Yeah,
We'd like to be able to proceed with this, with the senior housing if we can. It's a
Oh,
long range
absolutely.
project, but
mhm.
Well, personally, I
most,
thought, oh, go ahead.
but it's the biggest need,
Oh,
It's a huge
absolutely.
need.
But I thought that the request for 20 was quite modest, actually.
Yeah, I
You know
did
what I'm
too.
saying?
I was surprised to hear her say other towns have given her 50%.
Yeah.
I don't know. I said, I think she picked that number, so.
Well, I mean, yeah, so that was the easy one. Are we at a place to try to attack the farm here?
Well, so let's just back up a little bit. So let's just stay with the budget. So is everyone comfortable with the money in the budget?
Once we get to the bottom of the 35, I think most of the rest of it makes sense.
Okay, but I want to make sure everyone feels that way.
Yeah.
Kayla? You have this puzzled look on your face.
I know, I'm still trying to figure out. So the two Those are the two only ongoing expenses that'll carry into fiscal year. So, okay. So the money that we have written on this sheet right now is the balance for fiscal year 2021, incoming included and outgoing included. So nothing will change between now and June 2021.
Well, the only thing that might change is, well, no, the 50's already been accounted for. So when the playground project is done, that first payment's going to come next year, 2022. That first payment.
Yep.
will come in 2022. So we'll have the roof, the library roof of 22,000, and we will have some sort of bond payment for the playground. So we'll have those two in 2022.
And that will overlap for 3 years.
For 3 years. That will overlap for 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And nothing else is reoccurring.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's why we might consider, I've got a plan here, it's just a thought. If we could take for not Fiddlehead, it's Fieldstone Farm.
Why don't we vote to see if we feel it? Why
What?
don't we vote first if we feel it meets the criteria?
Oh, let's do that.
And then vote on how we want to fund it,
Okay.
okay?
Somebody want to start it? I don't want to be the one. to
Make a
vote.
motion? I can't motion.
I'll make a motion for discussion purposes, is that we, what would you say, approve, we recommend a town meeting? What would be the proper wording for that motion?
We acknowledge that it meets the criteria. Was that? what-
Okay, all right.
To accept the application, correct?
To accept the application, that's nice and straightforward. So I move that we accept the application for $75,000 as requested by the East Quabbin Land Trust for the project at 120 Ridge Road. Nope, that's their
No,
address.
Fieldstone Farm,
Project on
Lombard. There we go.
Lombard Road.
Yep.
Okay. You need a second and then we can discuss it, all right?
I'll second.
Okay. And we're going to recommend it to go to town meeting for approval. And now we need to talk about how we're going to fund it.
I have an idea.
I have an idea too. Go ahead.
Okay, you were first. Go ahead.
I think we just fund it in full.
Sanda, I would give you a hug, but I can't reach you.
I mean, I'm just saying, let's just pay it and get it off the board so we're not
Well,
we're not juggling so many bond payments.
that's exactly it, because I honestly, we would be above our debt ratio. And since we have the funds there, we could take either 25 out of open space and 50 out of undesignated and clean it up that way, or take it all out of undesignated so that doesn't clean out open space. I don't know. Any other thoughts, people?
I would probably do the 25 and the 50 for now. Because we have a lot of money sitting there in undesignated, and we don't want to deplete, obviously, but these are big projects. We're doing a lot of big projects. I just don't think we should continue to borrow money and pay these payments.
We've paid, by the time the library's done, it'll be 7,200 about. I mean, it's a good rate, but it's $100,000 too. So,
Yeah.
you know.
So I guess we just need to vote. Do we want to take all of it out of undesignated? Or do we want to break it up?
I think some of it should come out of open space, honestly.
Okay,
Because it gets replenished, right? In one year you do a
Correct.
big project and the next year, you build up your
And
funds
you can
again. a
build
bit.
it up again, right?
Do we know, does anybody know the percentages offhand?
Yes, it's 10% open space, 10% historic, 10%, what did I leave out? Housing, 5% for administrative, and 65% undesignated.
so I want to say last year, I think about $8,000 went in all the buckets with the exception
right.
of administrative.
It fluctuates 60 to 80, but you know what? Even with COVID, this was a good year because the percentage went up from the state. It was 23 something. So
Yeah.
that makes a difference.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
They actually thought it was going to be around 11 at the beginning of the
so-
year. Yeah, so
So, well, that's because the fees have gone up too.
Yeah.
At the registry. So a lot of things came to confluence in a good way for that. So, all right, well, I'll make a motion then.
Mhm.
I move that we take 25 out of the open space and 50 from undesignated to fund the East Quabbin Land Trust request for 75 for the Fieldstone Farm.
I'll second that
And we vote.
motion.
Susan, aye.
Livdahl, aye.
Sanda
Stephanie. Stephanie, I.
Kayla Larson, aye.
Stephanie, you getting all this down? You're doing
I'm
it.
trying to.
Okay.
It's recorded.
Yeah, I know. I've already thought of that, but
She just wants to sit there and rehash all this.
Yep.
Bless your heart, Stephanie. Oh, that's a whole nother thing we have to deal with tonight. Ooh. We need-
So let's move on
Oh,
to
yeah.
Carolyn Read's project and take a vote on that.
20 out of, somebody should move. I don't want to do all the.
I don't have any problem with taking it all out of the housing fund, honestly.
So it's 20 out of that. Does that make sense? Or do you want to keep that for,
Well, 40 is still a big.
yes, so 20 would be half of it and it will get replenished.
Yep.
So,
We have to make a motion to accept the application and move it forward.
Oh, right.
I think
I'll
it's
make a motion to accept the application submitted by Habitat for Humanity. Is that,
yes.
that's who it's technically submitted by, right? Not Carolyn herself.
I'll second it.
Then
Some further discussion.
Stephanie votes yes.
Susan votes yes, aye.
Alice votes yes.
Sanda Barry votes yes.
Kayla, yeah, yes.
And can we vote, make a motion to how we're gonna fund it?
Yes, you make the motion, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that the full $20,000 requested come out of the housing bucket.
I second that.
Sanda Barry, aye.
Susan, aye.
Oh, yes.
Stephanie, I. Stephanie, I.
So the motion goes forward. All right, so we got those two done, and then the other two, I'll send an email to the library and ask them to come to our next meeting.
And now all we need is a secretary.
I motion, Stephanie did a great job.
Thanks.
I
Yeah,
cannot do minutes.
I'll take it.
cannot help you guys.
Stephanie, was that you?
I want to wait and look at the minutes first and then vote.
So someone motioned that Stephanie become the new secretary?
I move that Stephanie become the new secretary.
Nay.
For Stephanie.
I'll second that.
Sanda Barry, aye.
Stephanie, I.
Susan, aye.
Alice, I.
Kayla, aye.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you for voting for me.
I don't mean it.
Complete vote of confidence. All right, where's my agenda? So do we want to review the minutes? Did everyone get a copy of that, or do we want to table that till February? The minutes from last April?
I still can't find it. I know it's because I'm not good at this. But
All right, so why don't we just table that till next meeting, and I will send it out to everyone. I do have a copy of it.
Okay, no.
Is that
you guys
fine?
don't mind. Or you can vote it without me. You have enough people. I just,
Oh, that's true.
because I haven't read it. So if you want to approve it,
Okay.
it's up to you.
I'll make a motion to accept. sorry. I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Sanda Barry in favor?
Susan Worth, yes.
Kayla Larson, yes.
And
Stephanie
Livdahl
Friend,
just
yes.
abstain. Sorry. Can't.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion moves forward. So board openings, so we kind of did that. So do we have, I don't remember when we voted for new people to come in. Was it in June or was it in January?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Who did we vote for?
Well, I took Danielle's place and Susan took my place.
Oh, yeah.
Was. Oh,
So how many is it supposed to be on the board?
We're supposed to have 9.
9.
9, wow.
We have 7.
Oh yeah, so Concom, do we have anyone from historical anymore?
No.
Alice's planning board,
Yeah.
housing authority.
I'm really affordable housing, that's what I
Yeah.
am here.
Okay.
And planning, but
Yeah, open space, and then 3 at large.
Oh, Barbara Carpenter.
Oh, she never came. She never.
Yeah, remember she told us at the last meeting she was thinking about stepping back, but she never made that formal.
But,
No, and I included her on all the emails.
Yeah.
and that's the historic aspect. Maybe she could
Correct.
shed some light on. It would be nice to get somebody. Does anybody else know anybody else on the historic that might be interested?
Well, you know what? I'll send her an email and ask her if she's going to continue because we all do swear and we all are part of this board for a certain length of time and maybe her commission's up and she didn't want to redo it. I don't remember. But you know what? I'm going to say let's table that. I don't know about anyone else. I'm getting tired. Table till February and we'll find out if she's going to continue and we'll see about, trying to get new people in from different boards. Everyone fine with that?
Yep.
All
Anybody
right.
have a calendar handy for February?
Yep. So we usually meet the 3rd Wednesday or Thursday, which would be the 17th, which is Ash Wednesday, or the 18th.
I can't meet on the 3rd Thursday because planning board meets, so the Wednesday's better.
Okay.
It's the same
was
to
it?
everybody else.
What was the date we were?
It's 17th
17th?
of February.
A Wednesday.
That's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
That works. At 7 then, yeah?
Yep.
That works for me.
Okay.
Oh, and Sanda, the new chair came in on January 16, and a new treasurer will be named later, and Sue Fox will remain as secretary. So that was on January 16, that meeting,
Okay.
is when Danielle stepped down and you took over. And I think the next one then, I took on the money thing, which is really an interesting puzzle.
It sounds it.
It's because yeah. Because if you looked at the latest one, the library long-range plan had like 1,000 something deducted to a law firm up in Marblehead. And I said, that doesn't make sense because it was put in the wrong place. It wasn't under library, it was under, it should have been, I guess, you guys, the housing, or else administrative. So you kind of have to just stay up on everything, keep it
Yeah,
current, it makes sense. Because I talked with Ryan about that one because it didn't make sense to me. I said, why would the library be paying lawyers up in Marblehead? Yeah.
We have a lawyer that's doing the tax title work. That's probably it. Was it 15,000?
No, this was it was 1,500, 1,500 something.
Okay.
So, but it was just so weird. It was clearly out of place, but it was just a clerical error. but you want to catch that right away. Or if I'm the library person, so I'm looking at that and saying, we didn't spend that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But anyway, so we're on for the 2/17 at 7.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good. So I can just give you a little bit of an update on the playground project. Unfortunately, we did not get the grant, which was very disappointed. And she called and told me on my birthday, which was sad, but that's okay. Anyways, and I don't know why we did a great job. Ryan and I worked hours on that grant. And I mean, I think I know why, but I'll keep my opinions to myself. But
Were there a lot of applicants? Do you know?
Yeah, there are a lot of applicants. I just think we're not in an urban area. I mean, we're not in an urban area. And they invited us to, they have a new grant that came out for February 1st. And I sat in on that webinar and it just doesn't apply to our town. You know, they want you to rip a pavement and plant many, many trees and do, you know, interactive water, you know, play and
like you would in a city park.
Like you would
Like,
in a city,
yeah,
and you
right,
need to
right.
be serving underprivileged areas.
Yeah.
And that's just not happening. I mean, I'm like, how can we plant any more trees at the rec? I mean, there's so many trees down there. But the parks meeting is very enthusiastic with the project. We're actually going to meet with Ryan the 1st of February and get the RFP out. And we're really hoping that this thing is done. Our target date is to have it started in May. So we're hoping that goes forward. And yeah, so, you know, we're very hopeful with that. The ice skating rink is almost completely frozen. That has been, that's been a task in itself. And the biggest thing is because we ordered it in September, based on our budget, you can order such a size, but because of COVID, there was such a demand that the manufacturer ran out of boards. So our local, you know, dealer that we were working with basically said, I can't give you this amount. I can only give you a small one, 20 by 40. And so we're like, well, we'll start with that. It was supposed to be 24 by 74, and it was cut right in half because of his supply. And so then we measured everything out, 20 by 40. And then when I went at the end of November to get it, he had gotten a little more in. So then he's like, oh, you can have 16 extra boards. So now we made it a little bit bigger. And I've gone back to that dealer like 4 times because his supply, his inventory was coming in drips and drabs. And but anyways, we've put the water in it. It's almost frozen. We're going to put another layer of water in it. And hopefully by the end of the week, like Sunday, hopefully it can be used. So
that will be exciting.
That will be exciting. A lot of people, especially with little kids, have come by like, oh, we can't wait till this is up and running because it sounds like it's big, but when you look at it, it's not that big.
Okay, let's do a fundraiser, hot chocolate or something.
Yeah. So anyway, so we are expecting to get more boards. So I do know there's like a small pocket of money, like $400 and something that we will end up using. We're just waiting for more supplies to come in.
And then that's one of those things that goes off the encumbered list then. So.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but that's good, but that's all good. At least it's nice to see it up and running. In regards to the rec field, the ball field, I haven't heard from them. Did a Zoom meeting with them in July, and I emailed them in November just to see, what are you doing? Are you moving forward? And I haven't heard anything. So I don't know what they're going to do. Again, it is under the parks, but really it was for baseball and they have their own committee. So I'm relying on them to do this, and we'll see what happens. I mean, if they end up saying we're not going to do it, then that money will come back too. But as of right now, last I had heard from them, they are still planning on going forward with that project.
But they haven't spent any on any.
They haven't spent
inventory
anything.
or materials or anything.
Nope.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yep. So.
All right. Woo!
All right, so our next meeting will be February 17th at 7 o'clock. It will be another Zoom meeting and I will get that posted. I will let you know what the agenda will be, and if anyone wants to add to the agenda, let me know before I post it out, but I won't post it for probably 2 weeks, so.
Can you send me the minutes we just approved? A copy?
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
From April,
Somebody-
you mean?
Because
The
I keep,
April ones?
whoever keeps them. I
Yeah, I have
no
that.
memory anymore, so I try to read them.
Yeah, I have, I have that. I can send it to you when we're done here. I'll look it
Yeah,
up.
thanks.
So does someone want a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All right. All in favor?
Livdahl, aye.
All right, Susan.
And I.
Larson, I.